Hey guys, how's it going? It's 8-Bit Eric, and today I wanted to talk about the Nintendo Switch eShop and why it's really not that great. And it's not because of the content that's in there. Don't get me wrong, there's thousands and thousands of games ranging from awesome, high quality titles to some of the best hidden gem indies to shovelware. And let's be honest, there's probably so many games in the eShop that it's completely impossible to see them all, even though this channel tries its best to cover a lot of them for you guys to be able to see whether it's something that you guys want to spend your money on or not. It's actually incredibly difficult for independent developers to even get any kind of attention for their games in the eShop. And this actually was recently brought to my attention in a news article that I actually saw on a website called MCV Develop, and the title is "I literally cannot sell units on Switch. It's heartbreaking and it makes me really sad for the eShop. Why indies are struggling to be seen on the Switch eShop." So this article goes on to actually be interviewed, being interviewed between a couple of people who are creating some games. For example, Mike Rose, I believe, who created No More Robots, Yes Your Grace, couple other games on there. Joseph Humphrey, who's a co-founder of Inkle, who created 80 Days and upcoming Pendragon. Basically, they talked about a couple of things that are troublesome about the Switch eShop. And for one, that's the weird fact that there's no real way to get your game or your company or anything that you make featured. It's the user interface compared to, let's say, the Wii U eShop, which featured big colorful buttons, categories featured on the home page, and a lot of ways to access different types of search results and stuff like that. Much easier than the layout of the user interface of the eShop. There's a ton of games on the eShop, and stuff after about a week of being out gets lost in the shuffle. So let's say you're an indie developer and you publish a game, you really only have a week or less to get any kind of traction on your game. And honestly, there's not many places for it to get featured on the Nintendo Switch. In this article, they actually mention this, and this is an interesting quote from Humphrey. He says, "The primary mechanism for indies to get featured on the eShop right now isn't really in the eShop at all. It's in the news app. Nintendo currently does a popular roundup of each week's releases, and thankfully, they chose to feature 80 Days. We believe this was the main way that 80 Days received new players outside of our own marketing efforts. Beyond this, we haven't had any help from Nintendo, though it's not very surprising since we're so new to the platform. We entered at a time when indie competition had already become very fierce. It's an old port rather than a platform exclusive. The newsfeed is certainly better than nothing for getting noticed, especially since you have potential to be featured right from the lock screen of every single device worldwide. But it's also pretty transitory once you've sucking down the chronological list." So what they're referring to actually is the newsfeed. So this isn't even on the eShop. So you can see he says the newsfeed. Let's go ahead and go right here. This is the newsfeed primarily. Now I have multiple Nintendo Switch accounts from different countries and stuff, so you can see a lot of my stuff repeats itself, but the newsfeed essentially is this. So for example, Swim Sanity just got featured right here. Then you get sales, summer sales, vouchers, indie highlights, but it's often not really up to date. You can see this is like July updates right here for July indie. So once in a while you will see information, Brigadine, the Coma 2. So you'll see information about indie games of sorts, this is a good way, especially, you know, when you first turn on your Switch and you're on the lock screen, you have to enter the home menu. You'll see like 3 stories on the left. This is essentially like the trending tab for stuff that's going on, because the Nintendo Switch eShop is just a mess. I was sitting down thinking about it the other day. If you wanted to navigate stuff, there's not really much in way of things. Now, let's look at this. They have a few pages that we can see right here. So when you get in, of course, you have the feature tab. Most of the time, it's going to be the big wig games. So currently, it's showing Paper Mario, Burnout, Animal Crossing, the Pokemon stuff, Rogue Company, Kirby, Catherine, Shantae, Swim Sanity, Panzer, you know, the big stuff. Usually, you don't see the lower budget Switch eShop titles shown in here. It's usually stuff that is a little bit more of a higher end of an indie company. And then of course you get the recent releases, which, you know, it will include everything. And once your game isn't new anymore, you get moved to the bottom. So check it out. Like games like down here, table tennis, you know, Hotel Souls, Country Tales, stuff like that. Once you get past the chronological order, there's no real way for your games to get seen. So currently, these are the recent releases from right here. And honestly, most people probably don't even scroll down that far once they get below the fold. So yeah, you would be shown in the recent releases. And then the great deals section, of course, we know about this. As usually, you're aware of some of the eShop titles, you know, that are currently on sale. And then, of course, the best sellers is another tab that shows you all games, download only, and then the coming soon tab. Oftentimes, coming soon is another one that doesn't really show every single thing that's coming out because it would just get lost in the shuffle. But here's the problem. Reading on and continuing on the news article, you can see he says, in terms of organic discoverability, the main problem with the eShop is that it's simply too basic. That is actually fair. As you can see, I went through the whole entire eShop, you know, besides the search browse function. There's such a small number of pages where you can be featured that it massively limits the breadth of potential discovery. Yes, they have a discover page, but it's just one page where games of all genres and types have to fight for visibility. Beyond that, they have a recent releases which are guaranteed to be on, albeit for a very limited period of time, which is what I just said. Current offers, which appears to be full of games that are gaming the system. And the charts, which doesn't even break down into genres as others do. So, this is very interesting that they pointed out the bestsellers. They said they game the system, because this is actually a problem that I noticed with the Switch eShop. And this is probably the biggest problem. And you don't see it so much in the All Games tab, because All Games includes physical as well as digital downloads. But if you go to download only, you'll see some of these games that are trending are not very, very good. For example, Motor Rush GT is the 5th best-selling game in the Switch eShop right now. Celeste, Minecraft Dungeons, Carry On, and Cuphead are the ones above it. Then you got Final Fantasy VII, Doom, Stardew Valley, and Final Fantasy rounding up the top 10. And then, you know, let's look at what else we got. Metal Slug, Final Fantasy again, Crysis, Hollow Knight. So there are some good titles in the top 20, but then you get some of these smaller budget indie titles that do these crazy discounts. Like, for example, number 5, a 93% discount off from $14.99 to 99 cents. We all know the main reason why that game is in the top 10 on the eShop is because it has an insane discount going on. As well as number 8, which is Super Bit Blaster. Then you go down and we get some more games. 2 cents for Cedars, Puzzle Reboot, Ding Dong Excels 9, Toki Tori, I swear to God, is on sale every other week, 90%. So a lot of times, it seems like people could only get their games featured if they go on sale. I mean, now, again, there's other avenues, as you can see coming in here. It's kind of like a remark, like right here, Humphrey said it was called gaming the system. He goes, I mean, they're not just gaming the system, they're unfortunately using the system the best way they can. Massive discounts are now the core way to sell on Switch. If you ever wonder why there are just reams and reams of 89% off titles on Switch, including at their launches, it's because the store is ranked by units, not revenue. The top charts are the games with the most downloads in the last 2 weeks. So in other words, if you put your game on 90% off, and as a result, inevitably get a ton of downloads, you shoot up the charts. Then once you're at the top, you automatically get a ton of extra sales due to being at the top. So, the Switch bases this off of how much is sold. So, it's not a matter of how much profit's being made or whatever. Developers are throwing their stuff in the eShop for low prices just to get attention on it. And in a way, it's kind of making it's like almost with YouTube having a problem with the trending page. You're almost devaluing your games to be featured. If you're an indie developer, let's say you make like a tic-tac-toe game, you release it from 1 cent, it's going to be in the top 10. Does it mean it's a great game? No. Unfortunately, there's no ranking for like best games unless you best rated games. There's like no rating system in the Switch eShop that I know of at this time other than how many units are sold. So that's a big problem. It's almost kind of like when you look like in your phone apps, like in the iOS store or any kind of like game like website that just has floods and floods of horrible Flash type of games and stuff like that. The Switch eShop's filling up a lot, and I think this is one problem and an example of that the Switch eShop needs a huge overhaul. It needs categories. It needs better tracking of how games are registered as best selling, or at least a rating system would be nice in here, because it is frustrating. I mean, there's plenty of games that are getting overlooked that aren't gaming the system, that are high quality titles that don't do these 90% discounts, and they're missing out on getting trending because the Switch eShop doesn't have that many spots to be featured on compared to like the Wii U eShop, which had a great interface, and then the homepage. So after a few days, a week of being out, your game's gonna get lost in the shovel. So I agree completely. I thought this was an interesting article to read about. What do you guys think? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the eShop? This bestseller page and how games are trending definitely needs to change in my opinion. But anyways, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. Peace out.